Hi, it's Bob Paul again, affable, avuncular, friendly, cudgel. And I'm going to give you my second lesson in how to do watercolors. And you'll find that it's simple and fun. And my philosophy is that any 8-year-old child with 50 years of experience can paint the way that I do. So I want to show you what I'm going to do. First, I want to show you a few brushes. This brush is called an aquarelle, and it's used for making wide stripes across. And this end is neat because when the water and paint is still wet on the paper, you can scrape out tree lines and things like that. And then here's a smaller version of it, but it's got an angled tip on it. And that's for going into corners and closing out sites that are difficult to get to. And I have them in 3 different sizes. I've also got these round brushes, and these are for doing, as you would imagine, round corners and areas that require less detail. And you'll notice that they're 2 different sizes, and the reason is in certain spots, which we will do today, we're going to need 2 of them. I have another one here, which is, this thing is called a striper. I don't know if you can see that, but what that is for making fine lines and for getting into corners and putting highlights on the end. And they tell you never to do this if you want to get a point on it, because these are made from Kolinsky or mink, and they come from the rear end of the animal. So they tell you, don't do this. So don't do that. All right, I want to show you now a couple of other things. I have here what is known as a bumper. Now, I developed this. What it is an old kitchen rag, and I've wrapped the paper around it. And what that does is when you've got too much on your brush, too much water or whatever, you can run it across here and wipe some of it off. Okay? That's simple. All right, let's look first at what we're going to paint. This is something that I did. Let me straighten it out for you. I did this several years ago, and I want to do it today because it's a good, fairly simple illustration that's easy to do. You've got an old Vermont barn with a rusting roof and a kind of straggly tree, and the door is open in the barn, and there's a fence in the back, and there are some green Vermont type trees in there. So what it's going to look like is, I hope, something like this the second time. Now what I'm going to do is show you my palette. The palette is right now is drawn the same way. It is done with an HB pencil. That's hard. I don't know what the B stands for. The reason you can't use a standard number 2 pencil or anything else is that it's made out of graphite, and the graphite gets on the paper, and what happens is if you get it wet, it spreads and makes mud, and it's not very good. So are you ready, engine house? Let's start painting. All right, here's what we're going to do. We have our trusty water supply, and I'm going to spritz, because what happens is the paint that's been sitting there for a while gets dry, and we don't need that anymore. We got a big bucket of water here, and the reason we have the big bucket is that you want fresh water at the top, because the paint will start to drop at the bottom, and it gets like muck and mud, and you can't do much with it if the brushes get dirty. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is start putting in the sky. So you wet your brush, and remember, if I got too much water, I put it on here, okay? And I'm going to use this cerulean blue, which is a nice color. I discovered this late in life. I used to use another blue and water it down. But what I'm going to do is put it across the sky. Pardon me if my arm gets in the way. And I want it to be wet all the way across, so that's what I'm going to do, is wet it all. And if it gets too wet and I can't do anything with it, I have a hair dryer that I use to dry things down. And you always go in one direction. And the reason is this thing acts like a blotter. You always paint with the tip, but if you use the whole brush, it's going to act like a blotter and lift it out. So I'm going to take a piece of this paper. There we go. I want you to notice at no time do my fingers leave my hands. I think I'll put a little more color in there, just in here. And you notice I'm going in one direction, and the reason is we want it to be smooth all the way across. Now, what I can do is crumple up the paper, and I can make this actually like a blotter. And if I put it down here and move it around, it will lift up the paint, and I got a cloud. I mean, is that slick or what? Let's put another one over here. All right, so we got two clouds in there, and you notice it's just picked up some of the paint. One of the things we might want to do too, just to be interesting, is to take one of my small brushes, and while it's still wet, let's go in here for an interesting rose color, and I'm just going to touch it. You notice when you do that, it spreads, and the spread will move into the area where the cloud or the sky is, and what it will do is it will create kind of a sun bleaching of the sky with a color. I'm not going to do a lot, and we have some that drip down into the barn, so I'm going to try to take it out. There we go. This is wonderful stuff, this paper. I don't know, I prefer the sheets where they have the quarter sheets, but all right, so here we go. We got the sky, all right? Now, I'm going to take some more out of here. The next thing we got to do, and I'm not going to use this brush, and I'll put it away because it's too big and cumbersome, is to take a big version of that round brush, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to get some water, and this is a color called sap green. I guess it's because it's supposed to be like the sap in a tree, but it's a very good color. And what I'm going to do is just kind of scrumble it like that. You see what I'm doing? Just dropping it in there. Can you see off my hand? Yeah. I'm just going to scrumble it like that. And we'll get some more paint and scrumble it. And don't worry about the lines that you've drawn in there, because they will be covered up eventually. But I'm continuing to scrumble here. All right? And what that is doing is creating a tree. All right? And or several trees together, for that matter. And don't worry if you go over the lines, because we can always wipe them out. All right? I'm going to do another one over on the other side of the barn. Is this slick or what? I mean, you tell me. I said any 8-year-old child with 50 years of experience can do this. My mother wanted me to be a shepherd, but I couldn't do that. I decided not to. So I've been doing this. All right, that's my sap green. Now, I have a darker green that I'm going to use, and that's going to be strictly for effect. It's much, much darker. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to scrumble in there. And scrumbling is taking the brush, as you can see, and just using the tip. Because I want it to look like there are branches and leaves growing out of the top, all right? So we're going to put it right down in there. It's going to be a little darker in the bottom, so we're going to take another color in a minute and put that in there. All right? I don't know if there's light reflecting off of this. It looks like the water is reflecting, but anyway, here we go. Here's some more and when you scrumble, by the way, if you're going to attempt this, you should move your brush around, because if you scrumble it in the same place, they're all going to look alike. So take your brush and turn it, okay? There we go. Oh, man, that's cool. I like that. And now I'm going to wipe it off here, and I'm going to go to another color, interesting color, called burnt sienna, all right? Now, sienna is like a red-brown, and it's a beautiful color because a lot of the famous watercolorists used it. And come on, get up there. not coming up because the brush is dirty, but that's all right. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to scrumble this in here too. And you'll see as it works, it starts to get a little darker in the trees, right? And I want to put a little something darker in here. That's a little sepia. It's working better than the other. And we'll have a darker tree in here. And maybe we'll bring some up to the top too. And we'll put some, that's sepia, that's another great color. It is a warm brown, but very deep. And its counterpart is a thing called Payne's Gray, which is a warm blue, but also very dark. All right, are you with me so far? All right, I want you to notice at no time do my fingers leave my hands. Now, I'm going to move this up here into the sky, and the reason is, years ago, the British started doing something which was to bring the forest on the outside so that it acted like an arrow and brought you inside to the paintings. Okay? I think I'm just going to put a little more in there just to make it a little darker. There we go. Not too much. You don't want to overload it. And put a couple of little scrumbles up there. All right, now we have another sequence. See what I'm doing here? Can you see this on the camera? This is the bumper that I told you about. And what I'm doing is trying to clean the brush. All right, now, so that we can start doing other stuff, I'm going to grab my trusty hairdryer. He paints with a hairdryer, folks. And what this does, you put it up here and you hold your hand under it until you can feel where it's warm. And you start scrumbling it around like this, like you would with the paint. But the idea is to dry the paint so that we can do what? Can you hear me over this sucker? I don't know. All right, that's almost completely dry. All right, goodbye. Oh, I'm tired already. You think it's easy to build a barn and plant trees by yourself? It isn't. All right, I'm going to clean this brush, and for some reason it doesn't want to clean. All right, now we have this barn, and this is an old barn. You see a lot of these in Vermont, and a lot of them are going wanting because people don't care for them anymore the way they should have. I've always looked at barns as being a grand old lady who is making a comeback and trying to be still grand after all these years. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this angular brush. You see that? It comes to an angle here. And I'm going to start painting corners in the barn. But I'm not going to use the colors that I used in the original painting. I'm going to try to get this burnt sienna. There it is. It's coming up now. All right. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to get some more paint on there. There we go. All right. And I'm just going to add a little water to it. Look at that. Ah. Now we're just going to put it in here. I'm not going to cover the whole thing with this because I'll show you. We'll wipe some of it out. Because what it does is it's an old barn and it has to look weathered. So we'll continue it along here under the eaves. We'll come down here to the door. And don't mind that I'm covering it, all right? And there's a continuation of the barn on the other side of this tree. And I'm going to put that color in there. Now, I'm going to do something that is going to dazzle you. There's a lot of tricks you can play with this. This is a color called aquamarine blue. And you use this a lot for painting seas and things like that. So what I'm going to do is just put a little in there and put it through like that. And just kind of change it to make it look old. All right? And that will work wonders for this thing when we get going. And one of the things you might have with an old barn is that the paint has dried up. So in certain areas it gets white. So what you do is you take this brush while it's drier and lift some of that out. All right, just pull it down there. We'll pull a little up there, a little here. I noticed I forgot to do this part, so we're going to make that with a color too. So we got this barn with its basic colors. It doesn't look like much now. Can you show them this so they can see what it is? What's this camera over here, the one over my shoulder? Oh, wait a minute. How's that? It doesn't look like much, but it will be when I get through with it. All right, now what I'm going to do, there you go. All right, I'm going to take this tree out of here, and I'm going back to this little brush here. And what I'm going to do is the same thing I did with the side of the barn. I'm going to take some of the color out of here. And the way this works is, it's like a wet blotter. You do it wet, and while the paint is still fairly new, you go in there and you can take it out like that. I'll give it one more shot just to be sure. We don't want it to be too wet. Here we go. And now we got that tree where we want it. All right, so I'm going to dry this with the paper towel. All right. Now, the roof of this thing, of most barns, as you know, in Vermont, are made of metal. And the reason is there is so much snow. I have a place up there, and the problem is that we haven't been able to get to it because there have been multiple feet of snow, and the temperature's been below zero for months, so the place is probably locked down. I don't know. But what I'm going to do now is put some more detail into this, and I'm gonna put some shadow under the roof, which is done using the sepia. And it doesn't make any difference that it's not perfectly straight, because most of these roofs are raggedy. I'm just going to put that in there like that. And I'm going to put one under here. And you notice I'm not doing a line like this, but I'm kind of touching it and let it do what it wants to do, because that's how you age these things, all right? And it's here to here, and now we're going to put it down there. We need another one under here. So we're going to put some more shadow. Come on, come on. There we go. Okay. And we need a little under this one and under this one. All right, so there's your shadow. I was talking about the metal roofs. They have two kinds of metal roofs. There's the old corrugated metal, and then they have what they call standing seam. Now, a standing seam, you see my hands up. It goes up on the roof, and they have these slots that are about 6 or 8 inches high, and they come down like this on the roof. And what happens is the snow gets in there, and it stays there until the sun comes out, and the sun then ultimately heats the roof, and the snow comes down in these slots all over the front of the garage in your house, and you can't get into your house. So it's not fun. All right. So far, we got nothing much that looks like anything here. So what I think I'm going to do is put in the roof. Now, these standing seam roofs are a variety of colors. Some of them are red. The ones at my house are green. They have blue ones, and you pick it before you put it up in your house. So for a little bit of color, let's make this one red, all right? I'm gonna make it red. All right, we're gonna bring it down here like so. And across here. And we wanna put, some up here. You notice there's a sag in the roof. All right. And then, because it's the metal, what we're going to do is add some rust to that roof, because it's starting to corrode, and it's an old roof. So we're going to put some of this in there, which is a different color. That's that burnt sienna again. And let's put a little bit in here too, just so we have a difference. And later on, we'll put in the detail to show this standing scene. All right? All right. Now, all right. Now what I'm going to do is paint this tree. This is a very interesting exercise because when you paint a tree, and virtually all of them are painted this way, you always start at the bottom and paint up. And the reason is, what I was taught was that's the way a tree grows, all right? So what I'm going to do is take a nice big round brush, this baby here, all right? And I'm going to wet the bark of the tree. And again, I'm going to start from the bottom and move up. Start from the bottom and move up. And I'm going to take some of this burnt sienna. And the light's going to be coming from this side, if you can tell that, all right? So in order to get this effect, what we do with this burnt sienna is go down the left side of the tree, like so, all right? And there's another one up here. We'll do that one, all right? All right. Oh, starting to look like a tree already. Next thing I'll do is take a color called burnt umber. This is a non-existent color. Nobody ever uses it except me. And what we're going to do now is go up. See, because nobody can use it. It doesn't exist. We're going to go up in there and pull it into the tree to give it a second color. All right, so you got 1, 2. And now we're going to take the sepia and we're going to run that up the outside of the tree. This brush is a little bit too big, but don't worry. And I'm going to go up into this one. All right? And then what you do is, while it's still wet, you tilt it. And all that color comes over so that when it dries, it's got a wonderful, rich effect of a tree. Now, I will put the extended branches in later, all right? There's another area in here, and I'm going to clean this brush. Where this fence is, all right? And we got to put that fence in there too. So we're going to take some of this and put it in there so that the fence, and you notice I'm using very light colors because one of the reasons is with watercolor, you always start painting light and it will subsequently get dark as the colors start to dry. All right, does that look like anything on the screen? I don't know, you tell me. I'm going to pull this down here and have this come out so that the bottom of the tree, you know, is growing on the ground. All right, now, that top part is almost all done. So I think what I'll do is take, forgive me for sniffling, I'm just getting over a cold. And if I sneeze, I will tell my good friend Rogan to cut so I don't upset people. All right, now I've got this, not now, Rogan. I've got this very fine, where the heck are you? Here we go. This is a very fine brush, and I'm just going to fill the tip with some of this sepia. And I'm going to pull it like so, all right, so that it looks like branches. And the branches then branch off. And one of the things you should know about painting a tree is that it always grows towards the sun. So the reason that the branches are all gnarled is that if there's something covering them at the top, like more of the tree, it will grow around it and will create all of these other distractions up there. Now I'm going to pull this one a little bit bigger and move it up through there because that's coming off the trunk, right? And wherever it grows off, there's usually a knot of some kind. So I'm going to take this and pull it up here, pull some away and add another one. We'll add another one here. Can you see this? Am I blocking this? I don't know. I got to get used to these cameras again. All right, here's another one that'll come up here like this. And you notice I'm just pulling it lightly and letting it go where it wants to go. And if you don't see it totally, it means that there's probably light of some kind coming off of it. All right, I'm going to use a slightly larger brush because we want to make this one twist around and grow out like this to get to the sun. How's that? Does that look good to the sun? I don't know. All right, let's just finish with this one up here. There's one coming off here. And you notice I am pulling it. And the reason is, as I said before, it grows from the ground up. So if you pull them out here, you get these wonderful shapes. And not all of them grow up. You may have one like this that wants to grow down. So you put that in there, put another one. Okay? Okay. So far, so good. If everybody isn't asleep, we will now go into some more detail. We're going to go to the handy dandy dryer. I think this is going to be finished before we know it. All right. You have to learn to sing while you do this because it breaks up the monotony. All right, now I'm going to take this very fine brush again. And this baby, which is a little larger round brush. And I'm going to go back and pick up a color here called Indian Red, which is a wonderful color. It actually should have used that on the barn. But what we're going to do is take the side of the barn that is exposed, under the roof, I should say, and let's put that there, and let's put another one here, all right? Yeah, there might be one here too. And what we're going to do now, that's got a raggedy look to it, and it's supposed to look like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint some of, oh, we need one on the top here too. Come on, Paul, wake up. You know, I'm being very raggedy. A friend of mine used to call it very raggery to try to get this stuff in there because you don't want it to be exact. Then it's not a painting, then it's a photograph. Now, I'm going to paint some of these boards in here. And the best way I was taught, incidentally, I was taught by a guy by the name of Herb Olson. Now, Herb used to be an illustrator for Collier's and the Saturday Evening Post, and he was wonderful. And I knew him for a year, and then he died of pancreatic cancer, but I was asked at one point by his wife if I would finish his contract of Christmas cards for the Book of the Month Club. And I did. Didn't put my name on it, but it was wonderful. And he taught me so much in that year, and we had a wonderful relationship. It was almost like a father and a son. All right, I'm going to get this very fine brush again. And he taught me if you're going to paint the boards in a barn, you put it on the side, because otherwise you're looking at it straight and they start to get to the point where you can count them, all right? So I'm just going to put a few of them in. They're going to come back this way and some of them this way. See what I'm doing? Just alternately, so that when you get through, you can actually see the boards, but you don't know what they are. Can you come in on this so I can show it to the people? Engine house, wake up out there. That's all right. Don't worry about it. You know, one of the things you have to understand is that barns are made in two sections. First they make the bottom, then they make the top. And you can tell in a barn if you look at it that there is usually some kind of a line across here like this that will show you where the top and the bottom are. So now we got that. Whoops, put that in, we'll get that out of there in a minute. we're going to put some more barn boards in here. And as you can see, I go in both directions, left, right, get them in there. We'll sock some other ones in here. All right, now I have got an opening in the barn. So I'm going to take this and make the little barn door open so you can see it as a barn. And then I'm going to get this little brush here. And as long as the door is open, we got to put that in there like so. You see that now? Oh, oh, makes me feel good. Now, I got to put them, put some more down there. Now I got to do them in the top, so I'm going to turn it around this way so I don't stick my elbows in there. And we're going to come back over here and put some, that's a little too thick, and we'll thin them out. If you want to go out for a smoke, you can. I mean, I will put some over here. And let's continue that down. Now, there's another little barn door here that's open. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little door in there. So that you have that barn door back there. I think what I'll do is try to square that off a little bit more. All right, we've got this fence over here. I'm going to come in with this fence now. I'm doing the bottom side of the fence. And the reason is that's where the sun is not. So that's what gives it a third dimension. It comes here and a little bit across the top, just so we know what it is, and put another one in there. Now, one of the things you have to understand, oh, look, I forgot. I got to go up here, too. All right, there we go. You see this so far? Here we go. Is it starting to look like anything? I don't know. You tell me. You're the experts. I'm just a schmearer here. All right, now, I want to get rid of this that I made a mistake with down here. So what I'm going to do, should have used a cleaner brush, but you go in there and you go in a circle, you dry the brush, go back in a circle, and while the paint is still comparatively new, you can wipe it out. So I'm going to go back one more time. We'll get it out completely. All right? All right. There's one more thing that you have to understand about barns. A lot of people don't know this, but barns are built on the ground. So that means that a barn is going to have mud at the bottom, and it's going to creep up into the bottom of the barn. That's why they rot the way that they do. So what I'm going to do, again with some of this color, I'm just going to add a little bit of that in here. And it's kind of raggedy, you know, it doesn't have to be any particular shape, but I do want to keep the slant on this barn. And a little under there. We'll take some along under here. All right. Now this doesn't look like the other painting that I did because I'm doing this very quickly, but you're getting a rough idea of what it's going to look like. All right, now there's another one of those. Huh. We'll get rid of that, don't worry about it. All right, now, the last thing, one of the last things we're going to do is put in the grass at the bottom. All right, and how do you do that? How are we doing on time? Oh, we're fine. Okay. There are many ways that you can paint grass in watercolor. One of them is to put down green and put another color on top of it. Another way to do it is to put down a lemon yellow and put green on top of that and another color, because it's always three colors that you're working with, okay? So what, oh, there's another one that I saw where somebody took pure black. But first they put down a lemon yellow, and then they put black all over it. And the idea of that was that when the black dried with the yellow, it started to look green. I don't want to do that because I think it's not particularly obvious. But all right. So what I'm going to do is take my big aquarelle again. Hi, aquarelle. How are you today? All right. I'm going to clean them off a little bit. And I'm going to get lemon yellow. And the reason it's called lemon yellow, I have no idea because it isn't the color of a lemon. I remember seeing lemons when I was in Italy. They grow all over and it's wonderful. And they make this limoncello from it. All right, I'm making this wet and thick. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to smack it in there like that. You see it? There's nothing total about it. It's just kind of smacked in. There's the yellow. All right, we'll go up to that tree. All right, it's not total yellow. And the next thing we're going to do is get some of that sap green. We're going to take the sap green and we're going to stick some of that in there. But you notice how I'm doing it, leaving space. And the idea behind the space is let the eye and the mind do some work with this. Because otherwise, right, straighten out. And then we want to add a little something extra in there. So let's take the burnt sienna, and I hope it's good and set now. Yeah, there it is. And we're just going to stick some of that in there. And you know, I'm just, lazily putting it in. And what that is where the ground isn't working that well, and the grass is starting to dry up. And we're almost finished. The next thing we're going to do is put in shadows. I want to fix this a little bit, though. Oy, too much. All right. The interesting thing about painting with watercolor is that you always start light and they get progressively darker. And the idea is that it's diametrically opposite that of oils. Because with oils, what you do is you paint dark, and then because the oil paints are so thick, you can always come back on top of them. Now, I'm going to clean this up a little bit, make some space here. I want to get a clean palette. I want to make sure that everything is completely dry. So, and I'll show you why in a minute. How are we doing, Rogan? Everything working fine? You didn't fall asleep in there, huh? All right, I think we're almost there. You know what I think I'm going to do that I didn't do before is I'm going to put a little of the standing seam in this roof. All right. Just give it a little bit more. All right, I think we're almost there, gang. All right, here's what we got. We said that the sun was coming from this side, right? So that means that the reflections on the barn are going to be lighter on this side and darker where the shadow side is, right? So I'm going to take my flat angular brush and I'm going to create a shadow. This is something else that Herb Olson taught me. You take a color called Indian red, right? You put it down there, and then you go and you get another color called aquamarine blue, and you put that in there, a little more aquamarine. Right? So if you want a redder shadow, you put more of the Indian red in. If you want, and you notice I'm putting a lot down there, and the reason is I'm going to add water to it and thin it out. All right, we're going to thin it out now. All right, and what I'm going to do is start working on the shadow. Remember, sun's coming this way, so we're going to put some of this on this side of the building, right here to the corner. Right, we're going to put it under here on this side of the building. Right, we're going to put a shadow under here. Now remember, I told you that this is going to dry lighter than it actually is going on, and what it's going to do is create that shadow. All right, all right. I'm going to put another little shadow over here because we don't want to do that side. But this side of the building is coming over to the right, so we're going to put a little shadow in there and put some shadow under the roof. Right, and let's put a little shadow in here too. Now, this is where it gets interesting because you've got this tree in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to create, remember the sun's coming this way, right? So we're going to create a shadow that's going to go up onto the barn. See the shadow? And that's there. And it will also come across here like this. And we'll take our little brush, just like we did to make the branches, and we're going to pull this over here. Go back in there a little bit. We're going to put it on the side of the barn here. All right. And you might want to have one coming from a tree that's outside the painting, which would be like over here, right? So that's another shadow that's coming across there. All right, and then we can take another one. I was going to put one across the bottom, but it's already got this. We don't have to worry about it. But I think we're just about there. What do you think? Rogan, is that finished? You tell me. Now, I did this faster and much different than I did the original one. Can you give me a camera on that? And I did it that way for a reason. Right? This one took a great deal of time to do and very carefully put in all those colors and all those stripes and everything. It would probably take you 2 hours, maybe more, believe it or not, to do a good painting like this. So I did this one quickly, and I think it's something that somebody would be proud to have in their home. I didn't sign it, but I will. So I want to show you so that this one's finished. Oh, what we're going to do, it's taped to this board. So we're going to take it, if I can find the end. There it is. And we're going to lift the masking tape off. And when it's finished, it looks like it has a mat around it. And the mat is what brings the eye into the painting and keeps it alive. You have to be careful because some of this paper will tear, watercolor paper. And we got another one here. Oh, come on. All right. And that's what it looks like, as if it was in a mat. Okay? Now, if you'll come over my shoulder here, show it to you this way. There you go. Now, that isn't bad for a quick painting. So I said, any 8-year-old child with 50 years of experience can do this. We started with nothing, remember? I want to show you also some recent paintings that I've done. This is a sugar shack in Vermont. And if you can see the smoke coming out of the chimney of the sugar shack, believe it or not, that is done with a cosmetic sponge. You just dip it lightly into the color, dab at it lightly, and it comes across as smoke. This is another one that I did last week. I have no idea where this is. There we go. This is somewhere in Europe. I have no idea where it is. There's a castle or a cathedral at the top. It's got one of those delightful little streets, and what that cross is, I have no idea, but it's probably got something to do with the cathedral. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, there is a sign, but I didn't know what to call it, so I just kind of scribbled something in there that looks like letters, okay? Could be anywhere. And this is one that I finished the other day. Let me get it this way. Yeah, it's called The Great Hall. Let me put it back here a little bit. Yeah, and it shadows on a red marble floor, and this was a lot of fun to do. And again, I did this one quickly because I could have spent a lot of detail in all the woodwork and the stuff on the top and the carvings, but I decided that I wanted to get out of it. I'd spent too much time on it already, so I started slopping it up. So I want to thank you. I've had a good time. I always enjoy painting and sharing it with other people. Most of my paintings are for sale if you really care. My telephone number, if you want to ask any questions, if I can remember it now, is 203-458-9055. That's 203-458-9055. And this is the second in a series. If the people in the back room decide that I'm any good and somebody watches this, we will have another one very, very soon. Thank you. Bye.